Yeah, man. What I
That's
was
hot
saying,
shit
man.
right there,
You know what I'm
man.
saying? So what we gonna do?
We want you to be an activist. And don't take our word for it. Look that shit up. Pulley. News networks are not even getting clicks like that. So this shows like there's an opportunity for this, what we're doing here on this show.
It's just a whole bunch of stuff just to keep, the people at odds with each other. Because if we all lived under the principle of humanity, of the principles of humanity, actually exercising the human rights, a lot of these things would never happen.
The Dog and Pony Show. And that's what I say. And like Doc say, weapons of mass destruction. Because like I say, gay rights is human rights. Black,
Yes.
Hispanic rights is human rights. Women's rights are human rights. You go down the list, it's human rights.
Yeah.
We should treat all humans to a certain level because you don't want nobody to treat you like you're less than a human. We all should get a basic level of respect that you give other humans.
That was just entertainment. But no, the World Summit, the World Government Summit.
Yeah, I saw that. I didn't click on that one yet. I ain't make it to that yet.
All right, well, we can get into that
that's
later.
the next one. Yeah, I haven't made it that far because I was watching the Atlantis one, and
it's real
and went to
long.
sleep.
It's real long. It's probably about 6.5 hours for for day one.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out though because that's it. We was talking about the IMF and the World Bank last week. So and then when you talk about Ukraine and you talk about wars and shit like that, you can't leave out the IMF, and the World Bank, because who's coming in right after that? It's like a double whammy. They keep on going. It's all a part of the cycle. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm Amy Goodman. Russia faces growing global outrage as mounting documentary evidence reveals war crimes committed by Russian troops in Ukraine. On Monday, Ukrainian officials said the mayor of the town of Multizhin near the capital Kyiv was tortured and summarily executed by Russian soldiers, along with her husband and son. Local residents said the victims' bodies were discovered bound and blindfolded in a pit. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is addressing the United Nations Security Council today as members review allegations that Russian troops intentionally murdered civilians in the town of Bucha, northwest of Kiev.
For now, only in Bucha it is known that there have been more than 300 people killed and tortured. The number of casualties will probably be much higher when the entire town is checked. And this is only one town, one of many Ukrainian communities which the Russian forces managed to capture.
That was Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is addressing the UN Security Council today. Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials said images out of Bucha showing Russian atrocities could be just the tip of the iceberg. Meanwhile, Kremlin officials have rejected accusations that Russian soldiers killed civilians in northern Ukraine, saying images of graves and corpses had been manufactured in order to smear Russia. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Monday U.S. leaders should examine their own consciences before accusing Russian President Vladimir Putin of war crimes.
First of all, what about those many American politicians who originated the Iraq War using well-known pretexts, who also ruined Libya together with NATO partners, who invaded Syria? Not all is well with the conscience of those politicians.
Yeah, so
That
I think
is a very good point that he's pointing out. I mean, Putin denied the claims that they were making about him in Russia, his the guys of his military. But how can you make him worse than the things that they were doing when they went into the Middle East?
Even with that, and I think those stories are spent anyways. I think those stories of the Russian, because I'm seeing videos of them being really friendly to civilians and really friendly to families and shit, regular Ukrainians.
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet if them people were bound and buried in, bound, shot, and buried, those were Nazis.
Possibly. But that's one of the narratives that they don't necessarily want out there, because there's a lot of people that's gonna, if they really realize, what he's fighting for over there, then it's gonna be it's a conflict with.
They keep leaving that part out of the story because it's like, who are those people he's killing? Like, what is really happening? Like, why did he kill them people and not others? Like, and did it even happen? Because I saw videos of the Ukrainian army doing atrocities. That's who I've been seeing videos and clips of them doing fucked up shit.
And they were doing similar things even in Syria when was Assange when they was talking Assad, yeah, when he they were saying that he was harming his own people with the gas and all this other kind of stuff. You come to find out that stuff was not true. All that stuff was being staged. These people being, like they're choking to death, like, there's many instances that that we've seen where they put together these videos to make an area that was, almost like a movie stage.
Yeah,
a movie, where
it was the white helmets were doing that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I didn't know you knew all of that. The white helmets were the ones that were doing that. They were basically like the media organization for the terrorists, and they would make videos, to garner sympathy and to bend the narrative of what's really happening.
Yeah,
and it was played on the major news stations over here.
Well,
so
but that's because we're supposed to be stupid,
right? I was about to say either MSNBC and CNN are stupid as fuck, or they're playing these videos for for a fucking reason.
It's for a purpose. Because really, they're not as dumb, because it's easy to say that, they just reporting what they see, but at the same time, real journalism means
you're gonna dig. How the hell me and you sitting here, you a truck driver, me some damn waiter college student, know that those videos were fake and MSNBC and them don't?
Well,
how could that be?
The only thing I could say that to their possible benefit is that they played what they had, they didn't find it, but they never came back to fix the story to let people know that was bullshit. Because like in the moment I'm like, damn, that's crazy, you know what I'm saying, like whatever. But as you can look into things, you should be able to come back and correct mistakes that you made.
Right, because when I first saw those videos too, because they were like, it was always little babies and they would have like dust and dirt on their face and they would show them pulling them out of the rocks and shit. Of course, if you're a fucking human, that's gonna fuck with you.
Yeah.
But if you didn't know, they just freaking put the kid in those rocks and put some like dirt on his face right before the video, then you'd be like
some Alka-Seltzers and got him foaming from the mouth. Yeah, you're gonna be like, what the, you know what I'm saying? Like,
put that Sarah McLachlan music in the background.
Yeah, like one of those all those women's shows. Every show has that shit. I want to play a little bit of this.
Lavrov's comments came as diplomatic ties between Russia and NATO members continued to deteriorate. German officials Monday declared 40 Russian diplomats undesirable persons, effectively expelling them from Germany. France announced a similar move targeting 35 Russian diplomats. Meanwhile, the United States is seeking to have Russia removed from the UN Human Rights Council. On Monday, President Biden
The UN Human Rights Council.
Wow. And nobody, and see, and that's the crazy thing that they have.
What's up, Doc? By the way,
council.
I should have said hi. What's up, bro?
Yeah, what's up, Doc? I'm sorry, bro. I'm just in it like this.
Yeah, we rolling already.
Yeah, but yeah, man. It's crazy for these countries to practice human rights on an international level, but they don't do it on a domestic level. And the reason why I say that is because they got everybody fighting for civil rights, but you know, something that goes beyond civil rights is your human rights. Why aren't there any human rights activists? You know, this is always the civil rights activists that's standing up for you to, you know, get laws try to get certain laws passed, which if we stood underneath the human rights laws, you know, a lot of that stuff wouldn't need to exist.
And if you really was about your business, one of the first things you would do would fix this like racial problem, how black people getting messed over and Hispanics getting messed over in the States. If you really gave a fuck, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, because they have to run underneath this political ploy.
Native Americans.
Well, however you want to say it, the indigenous people from whatever shade to whatever shade, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And everything in between. You know, but and that's what's so crazy about it is that if as long as they keep it within that political realm, because human rights goes beyond any and all of that. So, you know, it keeps us fighting. You know, it's the way to keep us separated. I mean, just having, you know, Republican form of government connected with a democracy, you know, that with the democracy element within it is really insane. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a whole bunch of stuff just to keep, you know, the people at odds with each other, because if we all lived under the principle of humanity, of, you know, the principles of humanity, you know, actually exercising the human rights, a lot of these things would never happen.
The Dog and Pony Show. And that's what I say. And like Doc say, weapons of mass destruction. Because like I say, gay rights is human rights. Black,
Yes.
Hispanic rights is human rights. Women's rights are human rights. You go down the list, it's human rights.
Yeah.
We should treat all humans to a certain level, because you don't want nobody to treat you like you're less than a human. We all should get a basic level of respect that you give other humans.
Yeah, it's pretty long, but I mean it's kind of information. Well, I don't know. I mean, like it's a lot of stuff we know. It's
Yeah.
just it actually, I guess, really kind of points out some of the proof of, you know, like it gives you references and things like that where
It's super interesting. Super interesting. I could listen to it all day, because I mean, and I think he's a bit off on some stuff, but he has some really good information in there. Really good
like
data.
like what stuff.
Well, what I
Oh,
mean is
I'm not
some
sure
of his
because
some of
Go
his
ahead.
stuff he be speculating a bit, but you understand though how language changes and the way people talk and the way they used to talk back in the days. That's why I be trying to get people to understand that you can't study history. Not saying that this guy does it. He actually does a good job of explaining that the way people think or thought was different back then. You know what I'm saying? You can't interpret historical events through a present day's mind lens.
I mean,
If that makes any sense.
I know most people will be like, "What the hell?" Because like it's like, you know, when they talk about white men, you know, if everybody today is gonna think of somebody with like colored skin, pale, you know, closer to the pale color of skins, and during those days, majority of the people that were white were dark skinned, and because I mean, you know, I watched a couple different videos out there with some that, but that's some of the terminology. But as far as like, you know, being people from they're what when they said the European, I mean the Ethiopian.
Yes. Yes.
When the Ethiopian, like they exist from sunset to from sunrise to sunset,
All over
meaning
the
that
world. But what's
yeah,
crazy about that is, that's what stood out to me from this video. Because that's what I was going to comment on was the fact of because Nigeria is really a derogatory term for black folks. So is Ethiopia. And the other one, what did you just say? Was it? I can't think of it. Anyways, there's another one. But then it's like we think of those as geographical regions or whatever, or a nation or something. But it
more
wasn't.
like
It was.
the Ethiopians, Indians, the Indias, and
He explains that pretty well in this video. I really like that. I understood it before, but I really loved because you don't really hear nobody saying this stuff. Like this got to be the only person's fucking saying this shit.
yeah,
They got the balls to say it.
yeah, and then
Or interpret the history properly.
It gives it more context because for people who are really clueless to that type of terminology, because somebody said the Ethiopians of the West, they're gonna think about just that region in Africa that we call Ethiopia, and they might just think it's just the west side of Ethiopia. But
they're talking about brown people from the West, basically. That's basically what it means. That's how it translates.
That lives in the West.
That live in the West, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to play. I don't want to play a bunch of this, but I'm gonna play a little bit so we can give the audience a little bit of what we're understanding, what we're talking about here. I might skip through it a bit. I want to get to the part where he explains the Ethiopia of the West that we just said.
Yeah.
Insula or Atlantis Island of Nicolau Sanson. Says Uri Coechea in the Matopeca Columbana puts this map under 1600 and speaks of a second edition in 1688. All right, this is from the 1600s, which must be an error. It must be an error. Oh, all right, so it must be an error. So they're saying, this from the 1600s, and
that was the other thing that stuck out from this video to me is when he was talking about Atlantis, he was talking about the way the word, it's the ATL. Like there's nowhere else that uses that. And you know what's crazy? I'm taking North American archaeology right now. And one of the things that's crazy about me taking this class is this is the last time this class is going to be available because the guy is retiring and nobody else does this class. Because he really knows his shit. He's the one that goes out there and do the digs and shit. So, but he talks about the Atlalo. I'm probably not saying it right. It's basically kind of like a slingshot. You know what I'm saying? And they used it for hunting. And it evolves into the bow and arrow. That's used for warfare.
You got something in the oven, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna check on
it. Did you buy a silver pen?
No, I ain't buying no new pens.
Okay.
It evolves into the Atlalo, but before the Atlalo was for hunting game, small game and stuff. And so it will make sense for and also this was an American technology, by the way. So it would make sense that they would name other things after that or kind of variations of that or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Oh man, the idea of the ATL, just that Atlelo or whatever he was saying, really had my brain going because we got Atlanta already. You know what I'm saying? And it's just that the ATL thing is what really kind of stuck out to me.
Well, that was I'm still trying to work that out in my mind because I know he's just saying like based on dialect and even the words that like people use in certain regions, like you can like when the Arabic speaking languages, all of the words that came out with AL, you know, usually came, a lot of it came, you know, just the use of that al or
Yeah,
whatever
it's
was
Arabic.
it's common. Yeah, like it was the common use. And however, it was somewhat the same with this, that the at, you know, like the use
Yeah,
of,
pronounced it like that, that Atle,
yeah,
or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. And, you know, because that's why I was going to go into linguistics, is because you can't hide history from linguistics. It's going to be there. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
without a
going to be
doubt.
there, and you
What
could just trace it. Yeah, go ahead.
that's why in the dictionary they put different periods of time there, you know, whether, you know, something is Middle English or it's, you know, from whatever era that it was from, because of the time period in which it was most popular, or, you know, at least where it was the use of it became more prevalent. So
I think some of the smartest people in the world are linguistics. You know, linguistics peoples. Like, you
yeah.
know, they're like, it's a science, and they can do math. They can create languages. Well, not create languages. They could tell you what a language sounds like that hasn't been spoken for thousands of years using the math.
Professional linguists can create new languages based on, you know, like if they went to like any remote area and understood, you know, how they spoke the language then, like they could create words based on new things that we know today. You know what I'm saying? Like and it would, like, something that could make sense to the people of that time. They could figure it out because it is an equation.
It's math. And that's why, you know, I mean, me and you, that's another thing that we kind of got in common, I guess, because I feel like a lot of people don't look at the, you know, breaking down the word actually and defining it. Like when I used to read dictionaries all the time. So that's how I got in, you know, because the dictionaries will give you the different versions of the word and shit like that, and tell you a bit about the history of the word. Yeah, the etymology. Yeah. So, you know, if you want to understand anything, you kind of you can't avoid etymology, right? Like you really can't avoid it.
No, and if you do, you just
You're missing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I want to say harming yourself, but like you're not allowing yourself to really get the depths of, you know,
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let me play a bit of this. I think he's gonna go into the ATL stuff.
Again, this is from a very scholarly book. You know, when we're talking about Atlantis, see the ATL, that's a Nahuatl word. ATL, that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. That's Nahuatl, or that's a American dialect. The tis at the end is the Greek. They added the tis. So Atlan or Aslan, Atlan. We had towns called Atatlan in Panama, Honduras, you know, in different places. Atatlan, Guatemala, Atatlan. And then you add the tis, Atlantantis, right? Atlantantis, because that's what they remember. You know, remember the Greeks are telling the story. All right? Now let's see what else these Greeks know.
I want to show you some things that I don't think you even knew existed. It goes against everything Manifest Destiny teaches about Native Americans. And I want you to know this part of our history because people erased it. And we'll get to that later on in the program. Erased it intentionally. Erased it intentionally.
All right, now I just want to read real quick from this book. We're going to actually get into this book a lot in future videos. I just want to read a little excerpt from this book that correlates with what we were just talking about. Or showing the map, you know, in the 1600s. Now, this book is called The New Atlantis. It says here, begun by the Lord Verulam, Viscount St. Albans, and continued by R.H. Esquire. Actually, this book is very famous because it was written by Francis Bacon, right? So-called Francis Bacon, all right? Who's Francis Bacon? Is that really Shakespeare? Some say it is. All right, Francis Bacon, and he wrote this in 1660. Bacon is a Sephardic Jewish name. Bacon, Francis Bacon was a Sephardic Jew, a crypto Jew. And I'm going to page 2 right here. And just, again, real quick, we're going to get it, just to correlate. Let me just zoom in one more time. All right. It says, the next day's conference relates how that though they lived remote and unknown to all other nations, yet they had the knowledge of the languages, books, and affairs of those that lie at farthest distance. How the great Atlantis, which we call America. All right, again, how the great Atlantis, which we actually call America. Atlantis is America. Remember, Atlantis, that's how they added the tis. ATL, that's a Nahuatl word. Atlantis, which we call America, abounded once in tall ships. How the people of Peru, through the South Sea, and those of Mexico through the Atlantic to the Mediterranean Sea, did both in 10 years' space make 2 great expeditions upon Ben Salem. But by the valor of one Altaban king thereof, a wife and great warrior, who cut off their land forces from their ships, and entoiled both their navies and camps with greater force by sea and land, were repulsed and dismissed by him when they were at his mercy. All right, so again, just want to go ahead and just remind you that when we talk about Atlantis, which we call America, that's basically what we're talking about. We're talking about the true old world. All right.
In the book Prehistoric Structures of Central America, Who Erected Them? A lecture by Martin Ingham Townsend of Troy, New York. The ancient Greek and Roman scholars knew of the existence of the Western continent. It says here, that ancient book entitled The Book of Wonders, ascribed to Aristotle, contained the following. When the Carthaginians, who were masters of the Western Ocean, observed that many traders and other men, attracted by the fertility of the soil and the pleasant climate, had fixed their homes, they feared that the knowledge of this land should reach other nations. A great concourse to it of men from the various lands of the earth would follow. That the conditions of life then so happy on that island would not only be unfavorably affected, but the Carthaginian Empire itself suffer injury, and the dominion of the sea be wrested from their hands. And so they issued a decree that no one, under penalty of death, should thereafter sail thither. And they're talking about America.
That part right there was interesting. Yeah,
Very
that's
much right. Yes, it was illegal for people to come to America at one point. That shit really, I was like, wow, that's crazy as hell. But I mean, that shows how powerful this land is, or it's I would say is, but it definitely was.
yeah, that's crazy.
It was
That-
only good for gods.
That's crazy. So, but then you know what that makes me think about? Because how do you enforce that? You enforce that by the sea. You don't let nobody, cross certain, parts. Like y'all got to go back or whatever. Like, we warning you, go the fuck back, or we gonna fucking blow your fucking hole in your boat. Now you could get you could trickle in with smaller boats, I'm sure. But if you came with like a, you know how they like to go, they like to do caravans. That's how the Europeans do. Well, they always did caravans. It would always be more than one ship. You know what I'm saying? And that's how they helped stay alive and, carry resources and stuff. Because they're different, right? Like the thing is, when those people who made, that's why they couldn't understand why the older ones, like they just now coming out in anthropology saying that, they could have made these seafaring trips because they were like, they didn't have the ships to do it. But they didn't need this big ass ship, and they did come in caravans, but it would be small boats, and they didn't carry a bunch of supplies because they caught the food and stuff like that on the way. Like, you know what I'm saying? They knew how to live out there. Like, you know what I'm saying? They probably knew how to make water. I wouldn't be fucking surprised because them little ass boats they used, they couldn't have carried enough water to make it over the whole ocean. That's another reason why they think that they couldn't do it. So I think they was out there somehow fucking turning salt water into water while they was fucking on the ship. They had better
Possibly.
technology than us.
Yeah, no, I mean, because that's the technology that we have now, and it's a good part. Like, I mean, honestly, I think that they were way smarter than we are now. Back then, like we've been
Yeah.
dumbed down, and like we think a lot of things are like just totally, impossible for people of those ages. But I mean, we're looking at people who started the world over and over again.
They almost went extinct.
Within
That's
millions
why
of years.
I have to bring that in all the time, because this is a important factor in our evolutionary history where we almost went extinct. The best of the best made it, bro. The ones that was like the most innovative. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else died, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like pretty much against. There was nothing against you actually thinking for yourself. Like nowadays it's like they pretty much got to think for you and tell you how if you think this is how you should think. Like instead of thinking freely. But
I hate that shit. I'm gonna play a bit more and come back. Give me a second, y'all. I gotta check on. I'm cooking, so I gotta check on my food.
Yeah.
This passage is quoted not merely with a claim that it refers to the continent of America, but for the purpose of showing how carefully the Phoenician people, whether Asiatic, Carthaginian, or Spanish, guarded from the great world the foreign discoveries which they had made, and where their kindred were enjoying prosperity, and to enable us to see how little likely their discoveries would be to come to the knowledge of the great mass of mankind. Let us look for a moment at some of the things which ancient Greeks and Latin authors have said indicating their knowledge of the existence of a Western continent. Crates, a commentator on Homer, is quoted by authority of Strabo, a very learned author of the century before Christ, as saying that Homer means in his account of the Western Ethiopians. Western Ethiopians. All right, so what do they mean by Western Ethiopians? So who's the Eastern Ethiopians? Also, there's two. All right, so I know we mentioned this before. You've watched Con Drop and Follow Drop Nation. You know about the three Ethiopias, or the farthest Ethiopia, which is America. Ethiopia, right? Etymology, burnt skin, or people of dark skin in Ethiopian, right? So there was people of dark skin in the Americas as well. So the Western Ethiopians, right? So this author is letting you know that when they're saying Western Ethiopians, they're talking about the Americas. So it says here that as saying that Homer means in his account of the Western Ethiopians, the inhabitants of the Atlantis or the Hesperides. There we go. Again, the Atlantis or the Hesperides, as the unknown world of the West was then previously called. So real quick, I just wanted to show you what I meant about the three Ethiopias and what they were talking about in the Middle Ages and what was known in the Middle Ages and referenced a lot in the Middle Ages. I'm in the book here, Lost Tribes and Promised Lands by Ronald Sanders. All right. So this book correlates a lot of the story or mythology or myths of Prester John, which AKA we see most likely was King David, and his land or the empire of Prester John, emperor of the Ethiopians, was actually in the whole Americas. All right. So it says, where then is the remarkable country? Our magnificent, writes Prester John, dominates the three Indias. Again, if you saw my past video, yes, there was three Indias and three Ethiopias. You see, even India at that time was not named India, it was called Hindustan. So when they're talking about the three Indias, they're talking about the tropical zones in the earth, where the people indigo, or people of dark skin,
that's an interesting map. Right, it's so hard to find maps like that.
We're talking about like Hindus or like Indians, like what Columbus called
I
the
be searching
Aborigines.
for them.
Just talking about people that live in tropical zones.
I know they're out
and
there.
Extends to farther India. The farthest India, that's America. Just like the farthest Ethiopia, where the body of St. Thomas the Apostle rests. The legend of St. Thomas, right? Supposed to be in India. We're talking about America. It reaches through the desert towards the place of the rising of the sun and continues through the valley of deserted Babylon, close by the Tower of Babel. Close to the Tower of Babel. All right, I'm going to show you guys historically what resembles the Tower of Babel. What's an exact match of what Herodotus and Diodorus describes as the Tower of Babel, and that is the Pyramid of Cholula in Mexico. So he's saying that Prester John's land, right, was very close by the Tower of Babel. Suddenly, the vague immensity takes on biblical tinge. This is deepened when John informs us that his territories comprise the Pison, which is one of the 4 rivers that rise up out of the terrestrial paradise. All right, we're still talking about the Garden of Eden, a fertile place, right? America, according to the 2nd chapter of Genesis. Furthermore, like the land of Havilah, and there's another land just like Hesperides, Eden, or Havilah, we're talking about America, around which the biblical Pison flows. John's country contains gold. All right, we're filled with gold over here, and onyx. It also flows with milk and honey. We already got the honey account, right, in Columbus' book. A hint at that location of this realm is provided by Genesis 2:13, which tells us that another of the 4 rivers of Eden, the Gihon, compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. The whole land of Ethiopia. John tells us that his palace is in Susa, the ancient capital of Persia, but this also implied proximity to Ethiopia in the vague geographical imagination of medieval Europe. All right, so let's read this footnote right here. It says, this confused geography has ancient and honorable roots. The first verse of the book of Esther describes the realm of the Persian king Ahasuerus, whose palace also was at Susa, as extending from India even unto Ethiopia. In Greek and Roman authors, there is a similar vagueness about a vast region taken in by terms like India and Ethiopia. We just read from the other book, Prehistoric Structures of Central America, right? How they were saying that the Western Ethiopians, that is really Atlanteans or America, right? So again, it's telling us here that these terms of India and Ethiopia have a similar vagueness. It's too vague to tell you exactly where it is. It's all over. The latter, even in its narrowest sense, comprise a much larger area than present-day Ethiopia. It's a much larger area. They're not just talking about present-day Ethiopia, okay? And beginning just south of the first cataract of the Nile, and about its relationship with the better-known Persia. In the apocryphal Acts of St. Thomas, the apostle moves easily between Persia and India, starting roughly with the 5th century apocryphal writer, the Pseudo-Abdias, who describes the exploits of the apostles Thomas, Bartholomew, and Matthew in each of the 3 Indias. The 3 Indias. This latter concept became a standard one in the Middle Ages. All right, so this was a standard concept in the Middle Ages. So I'm trying to show you that when we read in these old books and they're just saying, oh, he lived in India, or he lived in the Western Ethiopia, or in Ethiopia, you got to really research what they're talking about, because these places didn't exist back then, right? As a specific country or location like what we think of today. All right, again, one of the 3 Indias, it says, faced Ethiopia. One of the 3 Indias faced Ethiopia. According to the Pseudo-Abdias, the second faced Persia, and the third occupied the ends of the world, the ends of the earth, right? Farthest, India, America, where they hadn't gone, between the ocean and the realm of darkness, because that's where the sun sets too, right? The West, underworld, a lot of underworld mythology related to America, especially when you read Egyptian hieroglyphs, and basically most of the Mesoamerican culture. They also say, that is the underworld, right? Because the sun sets there. The third became especially fruitful for the geographical imagination. All right, so listen to this. The third India, right, became especially fruitful for the geographical imagination, the region of untold highlands, in which the plural term Indias, etymologically one and the same as Indies. Okay, the Indias. When you hear in Indias in any of these old books, they're just talking about the Indies, West Indies. All right, came to rest for one and for all. Continuing with the footnote, there also were less mysterious, more valid definitions of the 3 Indias. Among medieval geographers, listen to this, among medieval geographers, but for most Europeans, even learned ones, the term covered a vast and distant region of dark-skinned peoples. All right, India wasn't over there what we think of India as a country today. When they were referring to India or Ethiopia, right? It just
So what this makes me think about is two things. One is maybe Columbus wasn't lost, and the other one is there's a whole nother spin on the sinking of Atlantis, because the sinking of Atlantis could also mean like the taking over it,
The demise of it.
going down in its prosperity or whatever.
That is definitely something to consider.
That, and like I say, maybe Columbus wasn't lost, right? Maybe he wasn't lost. Maybe he knew what he was talking about, actually. And because of the way that they do history, and they like to fucking spin things.
Yeah, they try to deter us from the truth a lot of times in these days and time.
Well, especially when it comes to conquest of the United States. Like I study history, and the hardest thing for you to read about is like what happened with the Indians, before and during the expansion of the United States. That's the hardest subject to fucking study. It's not that there's not data out there. It wasn't even that long ago, people.
We talking about like within the last 300 years.
There's all kinds of data out there. There's families that know the stories that have been told down after a couple of generations. I mean, there's a lot of data, but they got that shit stepped on.
Well, I mean, to find a lot of this information, even though there's some here, I mean, if you really look at the way that other countries upon other continents study or have, because I mean, bro, they know way more about us than we know about us.
Yeah. Well,
especially in Africa. Asia, I would say different parts of Asia, because
so Columbus, West Indies, maybe he wasn't lost. What do you think about that?
I had to think of that myself as like, he, because when he came here, because I mean that's the way in which they spoke during those times, because when he came to the Americas, what was his quote? Because I know the dictionary part, that's something totally different from the 1800s, but just the way that he's saying that they spoke and their way of looking at the people were of he saw the people of the India, of
West
India.
Indies, the Indias.
Yeah,
that is the words he used. The West Indies, the Indias. I've seen all this in my academic work before.
Yeah. So this is exactly what he's saying. Like that's the.
But they told us, he didn't know what he was talking about. He really meant the India that we know of.
That didn't even exist back then, because it was still Hinduistan. Wait a minute.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting stuff. We probably putting Deuce to sleep while he driving.
Nah,
this is the nerdy shit I like. I love this shit. I don't care how people feel about it. Like, I just love it.
I'm back.
Yeah, I love this nerdy shit, bro. I love it. Matter of fact,
Deuce, you driving?
Yeah, I'm driving. Yeah, I muted out for a minute. My phone was ringing. My daughter was calling me.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry for interrupting, Chaka.
This image, Deuce driving, but you can see the image. This is the image. You sent this to me, right, Pat? I guess. How did you get that? Did you screenshot it?
Yeah.
I wish I could make it smaller. Actually, that's weird how you want to make it smaller. Most of the time, you want to make it bigger.
Yeah.
But
that's America.
Yeah.
Mahdi, Ethiopia. Mahdi. Is that French?
Owen, hope I don't get in trouble for playing that last video. I probably shouldn't have played that shit. I'm always testing the damn waters, bro. That shit gonna get me.
You are now